Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtedar Khan, your host, and today we have a special guest speaking to us from Cairo. He is my old friend, Professor Saeed Sadek. We have known each other since 2007 or 8. We have done several projects with the State Department on public diplomacy, bringing scholars from Egypt and Saudi Arabia to the US and vice versa for the State Department. So we did a lot of projects on public diplomacy together. We also attended various conferences in Morocco and Istanbul together. So those were the good days when we used to travel a lot more. Professor Saeed Sadek teaches in the Japan-Egypt University in Alexandria. He's a professor of peace studies. He's also a sought-after advisor for European countries. He advises them on elections, on Middle East politics, and basically acts as a bridge between Europe and Egypt. So welcome to Conversations, Saeed.
Welcome, Dr. Muqtadar. Happy to see you again.
We are talking after a while now, and the situation is rather grim, so to speak. So my first question really to you is, given what happened on October 7th, these terrible attacks by Hamas on Israel and the brutal manner in which it killed many civilians, children, women, and then subsequently Israel's response, which has now apparently, according to the Gaza Ministry of Health, resulted in deaths of over 7,000 people. They say one-third of them are children. There's a lot of devastation of civilian infrastructure, hospitals, power stations, residential homes. The scenes coming out of Gaza are horrifying, to say the least. So given all of this crisis right at the doorstep, how are Egyptians thinking about this? How are they reacting? How is the Arab world reacting to all of this, Said?
Not only Egypt and the Arab world were surprised by this sudden crisis. Everybody was surprised. Even the Israelis were surprised about this crisis. Everybody underestimated Hamas, and nobody thought that things would reach this level or magnitude. The planning was also a big surprise, and the ease by which Hamas did it, despite the fact that we are hearing and we got used to the propaganda, that Israel is Sparta of the Middle East, the James Bond of the Middle East, the Mossad and the Shin Bet. It was unbelievable how this happened. And so conspiracy theories immediately flew over the whole area. Was it Iran directly involved or indirectly? Did the Israelis coordinate it with Hamas to get rid of the Palestinians? Because there was always this idea that if Israel wants to demographically get rid of the Palestinian, all they need is some big event, and then that would be the excuse to push Palestinians in Gaza toward Egypt, Sinai, and to push Palestinians in the West Bank toward Jordan, and that's it. This will be the solution that they want. So it was surprising, and nobody couldn't believe what was happening. And they began to see what would be the Israeli reaction. And there was some division. Some felt that we should not support an Islamist, fundamentalist, jihadist group like Hamas. And this was very common among some Egyptian secularists, and many in the Middle East also didn't want to follow Hamas lead, that it is going to lead the change in the Middle East, and it should be our leader. Others, especially Palestinians, you have 14 million Palestinians in diaspora, they are not raising the issue about ideological differences between Hamas and other groups, and this is not an ideological battle. Hamas was doing something against occupation, and so we should stand by what Hamas did, regardless of what we think about the ultimate goal, the Islamic State, or whatever they want. So there was this kind of debate. But the Israelis, after absorbing the initial shock and starting bombing Gaza, they began to make a statement that alarmed the Egyptians, officials and people alike. They began to say, we will push, the Palestinians should go and run because we are going to bomb Gaza. They should go to the Egyptian Rafah and Sinai. And of course, Egypt said that this is a violation of our sovereignty. And Sisi began to speak about this. And even when he received the Chancellor of Germany, he said that I can call the people of Egypt to demonstrate. You know, for 10 years, we don't have demonstration. It is virtually speaking banned. You cannot get permission to get any demonstration. It was allowed, and it was also allowed in Al Azhar. And last Friday, a lot of people even ventured into now the forbidden Tahrir Square, the icon of the Egyptian revolution that had never allowed any demonstration. So they went to demonstrate, and the message was to the West and Israel: don't think about pushing the Palestinian into Sinai. We will not allow it. And you had the king of Jordan visiting Egypt, Sisi talking to the president of Turkey and other Arab officials, and they all agree on not allowing the liquidation of the Palestinian cause by throwing the Palestinians into Jordan and Egypt. And they refused that, and they asked for channeling aid to the Gaza, but Israel refused and bombed the Palestinian side. And there was some criticism why Egypt doesn't push. But I think Egypt and Israel have a security arrangement. The peace treaty is very old. It's since 1979, and it stood many challenges before. So there is always, understanding between the two. It doesn't exceed or follow public opinion pushing here and there. In the summer, an Egyptian policeman went into Israeli sites, beyond our borders and killed them. There was immediate talk between Sisi and Netanyahu, and they contained the issue so that it does not splash. The violence that occurred in Gaza immediately also caused tension in the entire Middle East. A policeman in Alexandria shot dead 2 Israeli tourists. The Israeli government immediately ordered that all Israeli tourists in the Middle East should leave, including Turkey. They also withdrew all the diplomats from Egypt and Jordan because of the demonstrations and anger that is rising in the area. The social media was full of curses and attacks. The image of Israel that it tried to polish in the last few years, collapsed. People who wanted, I know many people who wanted, to promote peace with Israel felt embarrassed by the violence and the revenge that took place by the Israeli government, bombing civilian infrastructure, bombing women, children, hospitals, and all this stuff. Even the credibility of Israel was not taken. Remember when this hospital was bombed, the Arab media said it is Israel. Israel said, no, it is Palestinians. But a lot of, counter arguments and proofs, affirmed, no, it is Israel, because they did the same when they killed the Al Jazeera correspondent and immediately said that it is a Palestinian, and then later on admitted it is one of the soldiers, but nothing happened. So that was the general mood, and Egypt felt that we should do something more, and so they called for a Cairo summit for peace, and they asked President Biden and European presidents to come. But then all of a sudden we found that Biden says, no, it should be done in Amman, very limited summit. It will be Sisi, Biden, King of Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority president. But the bombing of the Gaza hospital canceled that meeting.
So, Saeed, what happened with the Cairo summit? Nothing came out of it, really, isn't it? Especially with the US and Israel both not participating in it. There were no resolutions, nothing definite either to support the civilians in Gaza, not even an agreement on calling for a ceasefire. I mean, there were some important people there, including the Prime Minister of Italy, but still nothing happened.
It showed polarization between the West and the Arab world regarding Hamas, because the European leaders insisted that we must condemn Hamas as a terror organization. The Arabs could not do that because they see that public opinion is supporting Hamas. They felt Hamas is taking revenge for what had happened before, repeated violence and attack against Palestinian civilians without any refrain. And so they could not afford issuing a statement, a collective statement that Arab states do that. But we have other Arab countries who did that, like the Emirates, for example. The Emirate envoy at the UN condemned Hamas for what it did. Bahrain also did something like that, but the rest tried to be balanced and not also provoke domestic public opinion. The fact that there was a conference held in Cairo in the first place was an improvement, because or a step, because there was nothing since the eruption of this crisis that nothing international took place. The European Union would meet alone. The UN Security Council is always paralyzed as usual. Nobody did or was able to bring all those forces or international powers to discuss the solution. Nobody really said anything that is strong. So there was no final communique.
Yesterday, when President Biden was hosting the Australian Prime Minister, he made some interesting observation. He says, I don't have proof of this, but this is my instinct. And then he went on to say that the timing of Hamas's attack and the trigger perhaps was the expansion of the Abrahamic Accords and integration of Israel into the regional community. So what is the status of the Abrahamic Accords? I mean, the fact that you mentioned Bahrain and UAE as the only two countries which have condemned Hamas, these are the two countries which have also signed the Abrahamic Accords. So how come they are immune to public opinions in the Arab world while Egypt is not?
Emirates and Bahrain have very peaceful population controlled very well. 85% of the population of Emirates are foreigners, foreign expatriates. They are very rich. And the government is very strong, and nothing will happen. Bahrain, the same. The country is all the time facing uprising by the Shia, and but the control is big. And remember, the American Fifth Fleet is located in Bahrain, and so they didn't do much really, and they were not afraid. The Saudis, at the time of the attack on the 7th of October, had Israeli ministers in Riyadh. There were several Israeli ministers visiting Saudi Arabia, and there was a lot of warming relations. The Saudis suspended but did not destroy or divorce the Ibrahim Accord or any attempt to normalize relations with Israel. They just suspended it. Israeli airlines still fly over Saudi airspace. Nothing happened. It was not suspended or anything like that. And the Saudis kept on busying themselves with their own domestic issues, like Vision 2030 of Saudi Arabia. And remember, the conference did not attend the Cairo summit also. That was also, they don't want to be involved very much in this issue.
Like, what was the point of Saudi Arabia not coming for why would they leave the field for Egypt and Turkey to take the lead in the Arab world on this issue?
Saudi Arabia wants to be the leader. And so if they see that Turkey and Egypt want to be the leader, they distance themselves. And so this is a problem. And so there was always this tension between the Saudi and Egypt. And despite the fact that they talk by phone, but nothing really happens. The Turkish side also did not attend. I mean, the Turkish president was supposed to come, but he did not show up also. We have been improving our relations, and there was phone calls by Sisi and Erdogan on this issue to coordinate stances. And I think Turkey also supported Egypt and Jordan position that they do not allow the demographic transfer of Palestinians into their own territories. So there is coordination and understanding, but that as far as it goes.
There's a lot of talk here in the US that there is going to be some kind of an expansion of the conflict. There's this constant fear that Iran and Hezbollah might join this, especially if Israel enters Gaza and there's a ground offensive, which will then cause more civilian deaths and destruction in Gaza. So, I mean, I'm pessimistic about this. I mean, if at all, this could be an excuse for the U.S. to attack Iran. But I don't see any of the Arab countries or even Turkey entering the battle arena with Israel, given the amount of support Israel enjoys from the U.S. Do you see any circumstances or scenarios under which there will be an escalation and expansion of the conflict?
It is for some groups here existential threat. If you let Hamas be destroyed, Hezbollah believes it will be second, and Iran will feel it will be the third after the destruction of Hezbollah. So there is linkage here. If you destroy Hamas, you will also get Hamas 2, Hamas 3, Hamas 4, because this is a social protracted conflict going on since 1948. And there were many examples of battles. Everybody saying this is a showdown, the last battle. We will get rid of the Palestinians. It doesn't happen. Israel invaded Lebanon in 1982 and was able to expel the PLO at the time. And they thought we will never hear about the Palestinians again. But as you see, we are in 2023 and we're still talking about the Palestinian cause. A social protracted conflict lasts for a long time. It's very complex. It's deep-rooted, and it goes beyond the immediate partisans. So if Gazan and Israelis fight that part, it will echo in the US, in France, in the streets of London. You will find violence and clashes and security problems, because it is not limited to the area because of the national and religious dimension of the conflict that goes beyond the partisans. So this is a problem. As I mentioned, the killing of some Jews here or there cannot be distanced or separated from what is happening in Gaza. So I don't see that this is a final showdown in Gaza, and it will be another, another round. If you kill so many civilians, I saw some children, their families were totally wiped out, and so those children promise that when they grow up, they will take revenge. So we will be caught in this vicious cycle of violence between the two sides, and unless they reach an understanding that there is no military solution, there is no end to this river of blood, unless we sit together and have peace. A two-state solution must be imposed by the outside world, because the two sides on their own cannot do it. In 1947, when Israel was established, there was this solution from the beginning: 55% of Palestine to the Jews and 45% for the Arabs. The Arabs refused. Then we had a river of blood until 1993. Then the Oslo Agreement came back with the same idea, two-state solution. This time, the two sides signed and approved. But when they returned back, the constituency rebelled. Hamas didn't accept what was signed and refused this agreement. Israeli fanatics killed the Prime Minister of Israel, Yitzhak Rabin, who signed this agreement. So the trouble is that extremists on both sides are helping each other perpetuate the conflict. And that's why this regional conflict can really blow up to be an international conflict. If you attack Iran, Iran can block the Gulf. And the Gulf, this is where the oil and gas of the world, it will be worse than the Ukrainian conflict and its impact. Russia and China cannot leave the main partner in the Middle East for the attacks of Israel and the US. So this is going to be very serious if this happens. So all the people are now calling for a ceasefire. But the trouble is, Biden is encouraging the Israelis to continue with weapons and money. Maybe he would tactically ask them to wait until you get the release of the hostages, because it is also a domestic problem for the Israelis. There are demonstrations every day in front of the office of the Prime Minister, the President of Israel, that the priority should be given to releasing the hostages, not eliminating Hamas. And so we are still seeing this debate inside Israel. And what would the world and the Muslim world would react when they see Israel attacking and destroying Gaza totally? Are we gonna be silent? You will have demonstrations, especially Fridays, and it can be.
Said, we are seeing, even in the last 17, 18, or 20 days, Israel has bombed and nearly destroyed a lot of Gaza, and a lot of people have died. What is the Muslim world doing? Nothing?
There is frustration, of course, and there is feeling of helplessness. And they also feel that nobody is standing by the Palestinians seriously compared to what Israel is getting. I asked 100 students of mine what would happen if Egypt decided to go to war? Who would be standing with Egypt? They all said there would be nobody standing with Egypt. We don't think that American and British ships next to Israeli sea will be supporting Egypt. I mean, nobody believes that there is a military solution, and nobody wants to venture. But I think the biggest impact of this latest round is that the image of Israel as a peace country, is going to be a peace country, is changing, is not going to be what they had imagined. They destroyed all the PR that Israel did in the last few years. Normalizations, I think, will be will be reconsidered. I don't think Israeli tourists will be able to visit many Arab and Muslim countries for a long time. There will be a big consequences, and maybe later on we will hear about Hamas 2, Hamas 3, Hamas 4, but it doesn't end.
This is one of my last questions to you, Saeed. What do you think is the future of the Abrahamic Accords? Do you think that the countries who have already signed, like Morocco and Bahrain and Sudan and UAE, are they going to discontinue with this? Are they going to hold it? And will the Saudis also move forward? I don't know when this crisis will end, but already Biden is talking about continuing with the Abrahamic Accords dialogue with Saudis. So what are the chances that Israel can get both? That is, it can destroy Gaza, destroy any hopes for a two-state solution by expanding settlements in the West Bank, continuing to harass Palestinians in the West Bank, and then normalize relations with the rest of the Arab world?
Not as fast they would go with normalization of relations. The ruling elites in the Middle East today have started big economic projects, development projects. I mean, the Saudi have 2030 vision. Morocco needed Israel and the US because of the Western Desert and parallel with Algeria. Emirates and Bahrain need this relationship to balance with Iran. So as state, as raison d'etre of those states, it will continue. Maybe they will keep a low profile, but it will not end. I mean, there is no divorce. It may not expand. I mean, expand with whom? The Saudis may hesitate for a while, but they are not, ending this normalization. They will wait until the atmosphere is clear and the conflict or this crisis is over, and then they may gradually renew the normalizations. And you may see again Israeli ministers visiting Riyadh. So this is so let's say it's a temporary setback, but it is not a defeat for the Abraham Accords.
What was to me stunning is that when Netanyahu won the elections, President Biden was so clear that this is the most extremist government Israel ever had. I mean, these are the words of President Biden. And it is with this, the most extremist government that Israel ever had. MBS and Crown Prince MBS was willing to normalize relations. I mean, I don't know how to say this, that even the worst government that Israel can have, the Arabs are willing to normalize with that. It's not as if they have a pro-peace, a pro-two-state solution government. So if they can normalize with Netanyahu, I think they can normalize with anybody.
Exactly, and this is a different type of elite. They are no longer the new state that emerged in the 50s and the 60s after independence from colonialism, and they had this rhetoric about the West and imperialism and Zionism and all this stuff. So this is a new elite, and they are only concentrating on development. Maybe what is raising a lot of question is everybody thought that the Israelis, the Jews, after the Holocaust persecution in Europe, they will not be victimizer. They will change, and they will not do to others what happened to them. But unfortunately, sometimes the victims become a victimizer. And this is one of those cases that looks very classic. But I think maybe in the future, with new generation in Israel, away from this Holocaust generation and the and those who founded the state, you may get the generation that is willing to open up and be part of the area rather than being isolated and scared and walking under security because the people of the area do not want them. So it would all depend also on the future elite of Israel. What do they want? To be part of the area or the Sparta of the area or Japan of the area?
All right. Thank you very much, Saeed Sadek, professor at Japan Egypt University in Alexandria and an old friend. Thank you very much for coming to Khanversations. And those of you who have been watching Khanversations, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, make sure you share it with your friends and your colleagues and your social network. Thank you very much, Saeed.
You're welcome. See you again.